Good evening, you're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Joanna Ho. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Cathay Pacific's first half loss narrows to $5 billion. Health authorities detect a COVID cluster at the Children's Hospital. And rising food prices push inflation on the mainland to a 2-year high. Hong Kong's flagship carrier has reported a first-half loss of $5 billion, far less than last year's. With COVID measures easing, Cathay Pacific Airways expects to increase its passenger numbers up to a quarter of pre-pandemic levels by the end of the year. Chloe Feng reports.
There is finally some light at the end of the tunnel for the city's aviation sector, as Cathay Pacific Airways posted a narrower net loss of $5 billion in the first half of the year. In the same period last year, Hong Kong's flag carrier was $7.6 billion in the red. The rebound was attributed to a rise in passenger numbers, jumping 179% year-on-year to bring in almost $2.1 billion. That boosted first-half revenue by 17% to $18.6 billion, up from $15.9 billion last year. Its breadwinning cargo flight business remained robust, raking in $13.8 billion, up 9% from a year ago, as it operated at 50% of pre-pandemic levels. By the end of the year, Cathay aims to bump cargo flight capacity to 65% of pre-pandemic level, while increasing passenger flight capacity to a quarter before COVID. The company urged the government to do more to revive Hong Kong's aviation sector.
We are calling on the government, encouraging them to issue a clear roadmap so that we can see when all of the COVID-related restrictions and constraints on aircrew as well as passengers will be removed, so that we can plan adequately and properly to build back the capacity that we're going to need to meet the demand, which will be driven by the improvement in travel sentiment.
The carrier was hard hit throughout the pandemic, especially during the city's fifth wave. With hotel quarantine reduced, the airline has jacked up fares on the Hong Kong to London route to around $20,000 because of a lack of competition and soaring demand. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
A COVID cluster has formed in the Children's Hospital in Kai Tak, but no patient is infected and there are no close contacts. Janice Low reports.
A doctor, a patient care assistant, and 2 nurses from the hematology and oncology ward of the Children's Hospital tested positive after taking care of a COVID patient last month. Hospital Authority Chief Manager Gladys Kwan said an initial PCR test was negative, but a second test turned in a positive result.
For this particular group of staff, nowadays actually they are doing the daily PCR to make sure that whether there is any other confirming cases within this cohort of patient and staff.
Kwan said no one has been listed as a close contact, and no patients at the ward contracted COVID this month. With hotel quarantine reduced, those who have been isolated for 3 days can start returning home, although the new arrangement begins on Friday. Nearly 9,000 travelers were eligible to leave their hotels today, according to the Center for Health Protection. Hong Kong recorded 4,593 new COVID infections, 249 of which were imported. 4 patients, including one from a care home, died from the virus. Hospitals admitted another 201 COVID patients, taking the tally to 1,561. 6 are in intensive care and 3 are in critical condition. Janice Low, HKIBC.
There's an ongoing debate after the government slashed hotel quarantine to 3 days and launched a color health code system. The business sector is calling for further relaxation, while a health expert is pressing for tighter COVID test rules. Taking to the airwaves this morning, Steve Chuang, Executive Deputy Chairman of the Federation of Hong Kong Industries, said the 3+4 regime sounds acceptable to business travelers. However, there are still obstacles as some venues, such as the Convention and Exhibition Center, will not admit people with a yellow health code who are undergoing a 4-day medical surveillance. Chuang hopes the government can ease the restriction, saying those are important venues for businesses to take orders. He is hoping for further relaxation, such as a 0+7 or 0+4 regime. On a separate note, infectious disease expert Joseph Zhang suggested that the government adopt stricter COVID test rules for yellow code holders who work in high-risk venues such as hospitals and elderly care homes. Zhang said the government can consider requiring them to undergo PCR tests every day as they face people with weaker immunity during work. Elderly Commission member Grace Lee echoed Zhang and suggested increasing the frequency of PCR tests for elderly home staff. She recommended that they be allowed to go on leave for 4 days during their medical surveillance period if they have enough entitled holidays. But if they must work because of a manpower shortage in their care homes, Lee advised them not to get in contact with unvaccinated elderly people. Foreign domestic helpers arriving in Hong Kong from Friday will be allowed to stay and work at their employer's home after 3 days of hotel quarantine. But employers can also arrange for the helpers to stay in licensed hotels or guest houses during the 4-day medical surveillance and the subsequent 3 days of self-monitoring, depending on their family's condition. They will not be required to make an application to the Labor Department. Liberal Party honorary heavyweights James Tian, Selina Chow, and Miriam Lau have quit the pro-business group. Sources said Tian wrote to express his dissatisfaction over the scrapping of his position as honorary chairman without consultation. Tian added the move was a diversion from the party's tradition and neglected the mutual respect of members. Party leader Tommy Chung said he deeply regretted the resignation of the 3 veteran members and former lawmakers. Chairman Peter Shiu said he is trying to convince them to remain. About 40% of applicants have been offered first-year places in the city's universities. The number of applicants this year was the lowest in a decade, but the success rate for first-choice universities was the highest in 10 years, Jen Slow reports.
The number of applicants in this year's joint university programs admission system was the lowest in a decade. Only 39,523 students who took the Diploma of Secondary Education exam applied, compared with 69,397 in 2013. Of this year's hopefuls, a total of 15,857, or 40.1% of applicants, were offered main round places at publicly funded or self-financing universities, or a higher diploma program offered by the Education University of Hong Kong. Almost 90% of those who were accepted were admitted into their top 3 university program choices. That's the highest percentage in a decade. Applicants who have not received main round offers will have to wait for the clearing round, provided that there are still vacancies. Among the 8 publicly funded universities, the Chinese University remains the #1 choice for DSE top scorers. The Shatin Institute will be welcoming 6 out of the 8 top scorers to its first-year programs. 5 will study medicine, and the 6th will join the Quantitative Finance and Risk Management Science program. The University of Hong Kong admitted all of the JUPAS applicants eyeing for a spot in law-related programs who scored 42 or above in their best 6 subjects in the DSE. Janice Low, HKIBC.
Beijing has published a white paper on Taiwan, reiterating that the island has been part of China since ancient times. The paper emphasizes Beijing's determination for reunification, saying the goal has never been closer. It adds that the one country, two systems principle is the best way to achieve peaceful reunification and benefit Taiwan, the Chinese nation, and the world. While Beijing said it will work with the greatest sincerity to achieve unification, it will not renounce the use of force to deter separatist and foreign interference. China's military, meanwhile, said it will continue exercises while maintaining combat readiness in the Taiwan Strait. U.S. President Joe Biden was given no advance warning that the FBI would raid the Florida mansion of his predecessor Donald Trump, according to the White House. But the statement failed to appease Republicans who are demanding answers from the FBI. Sachin Kafi reports.
Republicans are still seething after FBI agents descended on Mar-a-Lago, the Florida home of former President Donald Trump. They are demanding to know what the FBI was searching for in the unprecedented action.
I sent a letter to the Director Wray demanding that he disclose to Congress the national security threat, the basis for which he ordered this raid, because certainly it must rise to a national security level threat for the FBI to raid a former president's home.
It's believed the FBI is investigating Trump's handling of classified and sensitive material.
Look, I know the president had to leave office. He's moving quickly, boxes things up, sends them back. They want to work out whether there's something taken or not. Move it back. It's happened many times before. We have a history of this with Hillary Clinton and others. They were treated differently. That's the problem.
The Justice Department and the FBI have declined to comment on the search. White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre said President Joe Biden only learned about the raid from what she called public reports. Republicans accused the FBI of overkill, saying they should have just asked Trump for any documents. Trump is using the incident to appeal for political donations to fund a possible attempt to return to the White House. Sachin Katwi, HKIBC.
Inflation on the mainland has hit a two-year high. The Consumer Price Index in July rose 2.7% from a year earlier. The main reason was a jump in food prices. Pork, the mainland's favorite meat, surged over 20%, while fresh vegetables cost 13% more. Heat waves across China were blamed for soaring vegetable prices. Meanwhile, the Producer Price Index is at a 17-month low, with growth slowing to 4.2% as commodity prices eased. The Hong Kong stock market registered its third straight session of losses, falling to a 3-month low before U.S. inflation figures are released tonight. The Hang Seng Index lost nearly 2%, dragged down by tech stocks. Cathay Pacific took off on encouraging interim results, rising nearly 3%, ending the day up 1%. Property stocks were the biggest losers. Longfor plunged 16% to its lowest in 3 years, while Country Garden gave up 7.2%. Tech heavyweights Tencent, Meituan, and JD.com all retreated for the fourth consecutive session. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed down 392 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent was down $2.40, Meituan down $6.40. BYD Company down $10.20, JD.com down $10.20. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euros at 8.04, British pound at 9.51, and Australian dollar at 5.47. Over to the UK market, FTSE 100 is up 5 points. On to the weather now. It will continue to be cloudy with occasional heavy showers and thunderstorms. Temperatures will range between 26 and 30 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Joanna Ho. Good night.